Well, it appears Ron Johnson and Chuck Grassley are not happy with Christopher Wray right now, and they want him to produce some more documents. So, stick with me, folks. I'll be with you in a minute. Hey everybody, this is Deb with Truthification Chronicles, and it seems that Chuck Grassley is back to his letter writing. Well, actually, this is by Chuck Grassley and Ron Johnson, who are the heads of a couple of the major committees right now in the Senate. One of them is the Finance, that would be Chuck Grassley, and then Homeland Security would be Ron Johnson. And they're trying to get to the bottom of what really happened with Obama's FBI, and then those that stayed in there at the beginning of President Trump's administration. So, here we go. This was put out on April 16th, which happens to be when I'm recording this. If you look at this, this is to Christopher Wray. On January 28, 2020, we wrote to Attorney General Barr and requested the declassification of 4 footnotes in the Office of the Inspector General report about the Federal Bureau of Investigation's FBI Crossfire Hurricane investigation. Since then, we received declassified versions of those and other footnotes, and they reveal disturbing facts about the FBI's investigation. The Crossfire Hurricane team's investigative file included at least 2 intelligence reports stating that key parts of the reporting from Christopher Steele, reporting that, quote, played a central and essential role in the decision to request FISA orders, were a part of a Russian disinformation campaign. I'm going to stop right there for just a second, because what is really disturbing to me is that the FISA judges saw those footnotes. They weren't declassified from the FISA judges. They saw them all. Horowitz saw them all. And why in the world didn't they raise these kinds of questions? That's what really bothers me. And, for the judges, why would you go ahead and approve these warrants 4 times, with Carter Page, and then there were the other 3 warrants that people don't talk too much about? Why would you even approve them if they knew about this kind of stuff? I don't know. Anyway, going on, the information in the now declassified footnotes also directly contradicts statements provided by FBI officials in the OIG report, which is what I said. Horowitz saw these. Why didn't Horowitz start questioning about them? Huh? Specifically, William Bill Priestap, the assistant director of the counterintelligence division, who was, quote, ultimately responsible for the Crossfire Hurricane investigation, told OIG that, quote, the FBI didn't have any indication whatsoever by May 2017 that the Russians were running a disinformation campaign through the Steele election reporting. Right. The investigation supervisory intelligence analyst also told OIG that, quote, he had no information as of June 2017 that Steele's election reporting source network had been penetrated or compromised. They were so lying. Yet in January 2017, the FBI received a report that part of Steele's reporting, quote, was part of a Russian disinformation campaign. And in February 2017, the FBI received a second report that another part of Steele's reporting was, quote, the product of Russian intelligence services infiltrating a source into the network. We are deeply troubled by the Crossfire Hurricane team's awareness of and apparent indifference to Russian disinformation, as well as by the grossly inaccurate statements by the FBI official in charge of the investigation and its supervisory intelligence analyst. So here they're at it. I mean, they're just nailing them. These recently declassified footnotes raise another issue of significant concern. What other parts of the FBI's investigation were infected by Russian disinformation? For example, one footnote explains that Russian intelligence services targeted Steele's company for penetration. Another footnote shows that, as early as October 2016, and the same time it was preparing its first FISA application, the FBI became aware that one of Steele's key sources was either a Russian intelligence officer or otherwise linked to Russian intelligence. In other words, the FBI knew that Russian intelligence was targeting Christopher Steele's company, that Steele relied on sources affiliated with Russian intelligence, and at least 2 of Steele's reports were described as the product of a Russian disinformation campaign. Because these facts show the intention, means, and ability to plant Russian disinformation in Steele's reporting, they suggest that the prevalence of such disinformation in the FBI's Crossfire Hurricane investigation may have been widespread. Oh, you bet it was widespread, all over the place. For these reasons, please provide the following no later than April 30th of 2020. 1. All intelligence reports, and that includes the reporting, products, memoranda, everything, foreign or domestic, received or reviewed by the Crossfire Hurricane team. For any such intelligence record no longer in FBI's possession, please identify the record, the entity that provided the record, and the date of FBI's review. 2. All FBI records, and that would include the 302s, the ECs are the electronic communications or emails, etc., addressing these intelligence products. And 3, a list of all intelligence records requested but not received or reviewed by the Crossfire Hurricane team. Please send all unclassified material directly to each committee. And then it goes through, and the Republicans always do this. They put in the legal reason, that they're doing this. It's as of Executive Order 13-526. Check to make sure that if it's classified, it's listed as classified. Anything that's not classified is put in a separate section. And so they follow the rules. You never see this in any of the requests that the Democrats make. They don't give any reason for what they're doing or why they're asking for these things. But anyway, so should you have any questions, ask them. There sure are a lot of Flynns, aren't there? I don't know if they're relatives, but there's a lot. There's like one that often files when there's court documents. Her name's on there. So anyway, there's their signatures, and they sent copies to Barr and Horowitz and Grinnell. Now, I think this ought to be pretty, revealing. First of all, this stuff that was included that they pointed out. I mean, these are things that should not have been. And I hope when they look through all of these documents that they can find what was really going on. It's going to become very obvious. So we're going to have to wait and see. They're working on it. They've been working on it for years. Ever since 2016, they have been trying to get to the bottom of it. It just is taking time, and this is how our government works. Unfortunately, it's slow, which when people are talking about what's going on right now with the coronavirus, and they claim that Trump's not doing anything, he has done tons, because there's no way all of this testing, the different types of tests that are now available, there's no way those would have been developed in that amount of time if he wouldn't have been pushing them, because that's part of the problem, especially when you have the FDA in there. They tend to take a very long time to put anything out. And it's a long process usually. But no, not these. He's streamlining it, and it's going fast. So anyway, that's what they're after. We'll see if April 30th, if those are provided by Christopher Wray. I think some documents are starting to come out, but it'll remain to be seen what can. Remember, there's an issue of grand jury information, and if it's being used as grand jury evidence, I'm not so sure it can be released. It may be able to be released to Congress. I don't know the legality on that, but yeah. So I do know that if it's grand jury material, it can't be released. So that does kind of tie things up. And probably a lot of the things they're asking for may be tied up in those kinds of things. But anyway, I also found this article on the Federalist, 9 key points from newly declassified report details on FISA abuse. So this has to do with the same things that their letter was talking about, and that there's all these things that they have declassified footnotes. And there were these 3 in particular that were very informational. and they revealed that the FBI had received information that the Steele dossier included Russian disinformation and that Steele's primary subsource did not have a, quote, network of sources. The additional information released this week builds on those revelations and adds some new ones. And then there are 9 points that they list here. The UK consented to Steele's cooperation. There was potentially a lot more spying on the Trump campaign, which, again, these are things we've known for a long time. It's just that now the evidence is starting to come out. U.S. intelligence lacked derogatory information on Joseph Massoud. Everything about him was good, and they weren't going to say anything negative about him or that he was tied to Russia in any way. Oh, no, we're not going to do that. And so just favorable information on it. That's all you want to have. And more questions about the predicate and how did it all start. It raises a lot of questions. And again, why, if these were things that were, Horowitz had, why didn't we see some criminal referrals out of that report? It just seems, well, other than the Kevin Kleinsmith one, that was a definite. But why shouldn't we see others when these kinds of things were in there? So, it just is puzzling. Not really. I sit there and I say that it's puzzling. It's not puzzling because we know why it's happening, but it should have raised a lot of red flags to people who, may not understand things about the deep state. It should have been like, wait a minute, hold on. And you would think that somewhere along the line, Horowitz's people would have said, wait, here, this is like major. More evidence that Steele colluded with Russians than that Trump did. See, that's the real point right there. That's the irony in it all, that they colluded more with the Russians than Trump did. Well, Trump didn't collude with the Russians. So any that they did was more than what he did. More evidence of Russia disinformation. See, this wasn't just Christopher Steele putting together a bunch of stuff. This was an actual targeted attack by Russia. This was the Russia disinformation. They were trying to inject this into our political system, and they did it through Christopher Steele and this dossier that was paid for by the Democrat National Committee. We can't forget that. Don't forget that. Don't let it go by. Anyway, so then down here, they go through each one. I'm not going to go through them all. I will leave the link to this down below in the description. Remember, if you're on a mobile device, you probably have to click that little triangle or something to pop it open, but it will be in the description. Number 7, did Russian oligarch 1 know of Steele's work for Clinton? So, were they connected in? Oh, yes, they were. We know they were. It was all working together. So, and that's the moniker they gave to Oleg Deripaska. So that's who they called him, Russian Oligarch 1. And so, yes, he definitely knew. And number 8, Bill Priestap pinky promised to, we always call it pinky swore. So pinky promised to keep Steele's file clean. Yeah, Bill Priestap was supposed to be the one that was kind of in charge of this, and he did some pretty bad stuff. So, know your beer drinking buddies aren't a network of sources. So that's kind of the last one, but I'll leave this down below if you want to read through them and actually see what all she had to say here. I just thought it was very interesting that, there were some definite things that were pointed out there that, it's really weird. If you follow the 17th letter of the alphabet, maybe you're feeling the same way I am. I'm watching the news unfold and I'm like, yep, I knew that. It's like watching a rerun because we already knew these things that are now starting to come out and they're like, oh my goodness, how could that have happened? And we're like, yeah, we knew that like a year ago, okay? We've known it for quite a while, but I guess this is part of what has to happen, that more people need to see the actual evidence. It has to come out in small amounts so people can absorb it. Because, if you know anything about human nature, if you just dump a big bunch of intel on them and say, here's all the evidence, there it is. They're not going to read it. They're not going to absorb it. They're not going to really understand the depth of the betrayal that happened to us in this. It's hard for us because we know what's going to be happening. We want to have it hurry up and get to these points where everybody knows. But it has to come out slower. And I know that's very hard for all of us, but just, hang in there. More and more of it's coming out all the time, folks. And these footnotes right here were a big part of it. So again, we'll see what Chuck Grassley and Ron Johnson come up with. And then I wanted to point this out to you because she links to that. That's actually the article, I think, right there. Oh no, this is a different article. Sorry. This is one about Papadopoulos transcript. And I just wanted to point out what she had to say, though. Sidney Powell, Barr's right. There were no mistakes by the FBI in the Crossfire Hurricane investigation. They used their power for political purposes to destroy people and make up cases. Mueller made it worse. All abuses. So I just wanted to point that out to you because she's right. There were no mistakes. They weren't mistakes that were done. You could try to rationalize them away as that, but that's not what they were. They were purposefully done to try to frame Trump. Then they had no evidence, but they were going to try to frame him anyway because they were desperate to get him out of power. They were really hoping that the American people would be swayed by that dossier and would go, oh my goodness, he needs to be impeached. Let's get him out of office. And when that didn't work, they saw the American people weren't going to step aside and let them do something to Trump. Then it started heating up. And had the Republicans won the House in 2018, I honestly think that we would have already been seeing a lot of arrests. But because we didn't win, this is where we're at. However, don't get too upset about that because I think there's probably a reason why the 2018 election was allowed to go the way it did, because I think they probably were gathering evidence of the deception. So how do you catch people in voter fraud? Well, they couldn't catch them in 2016 because the Obama people were in charge of the election. So wait until 2018 and then catch them that way. Now they have documentation that proves what was done. I really think this is probably what's going to come out later. So this thread right here is very important. And I want to make sure that you understand what really happened on 4/10/20. Now, for those of you, again, who follow the 17th letter of the alphabet, 4/10/20 we kind of take as meaning DJT, because D is the 4th letter, J is the 10th letter, and T is the 20th letter in our alphabet. And so that would be Donald J. Trump. And what big thing happened on 4/10/20? Well, there was something that was very subtle, and I honestly didn't catch it. I mean, I knew part of this, but I didn't know the whole thing. Because what happened was he became the most powerful president ever in U.S. history. And you're probably going, what? Why? Well, because as of Good Friday, and the timing, I think, was very important there. It's very interesting that happened to fall on Good Friday. Wyoming became the 50th and last state to issue a state of emergency declaration due to the Chinese virus. The first state to do so was Washington State on Monday, March 2nd. This is the first time in American history that every U.S. state and territory has been under a state of emergency declaration simultaneously. What does this mean? During this unique national emergency, the authority of the President of the U.S. is unquestionably plenary, meaning that his authority is expanded beyond normal boundaries. What does the President now have control over? 1. He can regulate all commerce and business transactions, National Defense Production Act, and, for example, he can order General Motors to make ventilators. 2. He can regulate all finances in the U.S., including all international transactions, Trading with the Enemy Act of 1917. 3. He can take control of all media in the U.S., Communications Act of 1934. He can establish the Office of Telecommunications Management, which oversees all media and telecommunications. President Kennedy did this through Executive Order 10995 in 1962. 4. He can capture all manpower and resources. Kennedy Executive Orders 10997, 10999, 11,000, 11001, 11002, 11003, 11004, and 11005. He can deploy the U.S. military within the U.S. 6. He can suspend the U.S. government. Sometimes people ask, why is President Trump waiting and waiting and waiting to drain the swamp? The reason is that he needed all 50 states under emergency powers to have full control. Now he can even bypass Congress. The president's hands are no longer tied, and now he has full authority to complete the enormous task of draining the swamp. Boom. So, there you go. This is what she has to say. Is that really what's going on? I think that it has allowed him to have a lot more power. I know that for sure. Is that going to allow him to do all the draining of the swamp that we want? I don't know if all of it's going to happen, but I think there's going to be some significant things happening between now and like June. I just think that in the rest of April and all of May, we're going to see the May flowers. 2 years ago, I believe it was, 2018, the 17th letter of the alphabet told us that April showers bring May flowers, reminded us of that. And so April showers, there were a lot of things happening in April, and there still are. I mean, we're not done with the month yet. And I think those are going to produce the fruit in May. And so we're going to start seeing things spring up that are going to be a result of what's been happening this month. Because there have been some things happening, even though they're not as visible as we would like them to be. Okay, and then I wanted to show you this. Yeah, so I checked my email today, and guess what? I got a defamation claim against this video from Italy. Which means, I guess, as far as I can tell from what you're seeing, that people in Italy are not going to be able to see this video, but anybody else can. So frankly, I have over 600 videos that I've put out. Sometimes I forget what I put in videos, because there's so many of them. And I didn't think there was anything in this one that should have been like really bad. So I went and watched it again, and frankly, I just don't see what somebody would get too hyper about, because even the Nicole Junkermann or Junkermann or whoever she is, it really didn't say all that much about her. And so it was like, why? It just said that she probably was one of them that had flown on Epstein's plane a couple of times by herself, because normally in the manifest it would have more than one. And in this particular time, it had her listed as the only person flying on those times. So I'm not sure. But yeah, that kind of got me a little rattled today. It's like, really? Okay, I guess. Interesting things happen. But anyway, I wanted to show you this one because crazy Nancy Pelosi deleted this from her Twitter account. She wanted everyone to pack into Chinatown long after I closed the border to China. Based on her statement, she is responsible for many deaths. She's an incompetent, third-rate politician. I'm not going to play it for you, but basically she was just saying, oh, everybody needs to come on down to Chinatown. It's fine. No problems here. Yeah, so I think he's right. I think she should be held responsible for the people that have died because of this, and because she was wanting to be so welcoming to everyone and say, oh yeah, there's no problem. And this is really something that the Democrats have done over the years. I mean, they are so upset at Trump. They hate him so much that they don't even care about the American people anymore. They look only to what they can do to hate on him or to try to go against whatever he says. And that's what she was doing right here. And because of it, people died because they were so against that. And some of these Democrats, like the governors, said, oh, no hydroxychloroquine, you don't want that. But it's been proven to help people. So they are so filled with hatred toward Trump that they don't even care anymore about the American people. And this needs to stop. It's going to, but it's being exposed. And more people are waking up to it. They're starting to see that the Democrats really are the problem in our government right now. Okay, and then I wanted to show you this article. Pope Francis proposes universal wage after coronavirus lockdowns. So, is this their attempt to try to get the whole socialism thing in there? I think probably. I think this was part of their plan, that they wanted to make sure that people got used to not having to work, and that instead of working, they just get this money, universal wage, and so everybody would be happy to let the government do all these things for them. Well, President Trump has kind of thwarted that because as of today, which again, I'm recording this on the 16th, he opened up the country kind of. He said, here's the criteria. This is what they have to follow. And we got some that are probably going to open up tomorrow. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens. The Democrats are not happy about that. They want it to stay in lockdown much, much longer, because if it stays that way, it makes it harder for Trump to be able to get the economy rolling again. And that was his strong suit. And that was what was going to win him the election. So right now they're hoping that because of the economy kind of taking a nosedive at this moment, that they'll be able to pull out a victory. But it's just not looking like it. And I did want to mention that I've heard rumors that the Michigan governor, she is something else. Living kind of in northern Indiana, we do hear about Michigan sometimes. And, they had a protest. Well, she lied about the people that were at the protest. She made them all sound like they were a bunch of just radical people and all those bad negative terms that I'm sure if I use them will not be good. So you can just imagine. I mean, she lied about there being Confederate flags. She lied about all different kinds of stuff that was going on. She saw people handing kids food and candy and stuff, and they were barehanded to barehanded, and it was all lies. The people that were there, we have many eyewitness accounts. We have videos that show what she said was a lie. And I hear that she's probably trying to get in a good word for possibly being Joe Biden's pick for vice president, which is scary. But I wanted to show you this. This came out on the 16th. And so, yes, the U.S. Attorney's Office, District of Arizona, has their Immigration and Border Report for March. And check this out. 946 individuals were charged in March with illegal reentry. 359 of those 946 individuals had previously been convicted of non-immigration criminal offenses in the U.S. That's like over a third. Of the 359 individuals with non-immigration criminal records, 74 had violent crime convictions, and these were the breakdown of that. 52 had property crime convictions, 98 had DUI convictions, 132 had drug crime convictions, and 264 of those 946 individuals had been deported 3 or more times. Oh, they need to have in the law that if they come across the border and they've been convicted of a crime and they've already been deported once or more, then they should automatically just be shipped right back. It's really sad that our immigration laws are such that they're filled with all these holes, and it ties it up in the legal system. Just Waste money is what it does. And you got people like this. I mean, that's a big chunk of people out of 946, 264. And alien smuggling, 69 individuals were charged in March with alien smuggling. 405 individuals were charged in March with illegal entry on the CCI calendar. These are people that should not be allowed into our country. This is what needs to stop. So anyway, I thought I'd show that to you. At least they're being stopped now. And hopefully that will result in them being sent back quickly to where they came from. So anyway, this is one I've got to share with you because Cheryl Atkinson posted this. You cannot make it up. The fact checker Facebook is using to censor a documentary discussing possibility that coronavirus came from Wuhan lab is scientists who worked at Wuhan lab with Chinese communists. Honestly, folks. And here's the bio for her, Daniel E. Anderson. And then here is a Breitbart article on the same thing. And it's like, really? I don't get this. This is who they're relying on. That's the expert opinion that they want, is the person who worked there. Oh, you can't, like she said, you can't make it up. You really can't. So I will leave the links to all of these down below for you because I think it's really good to share this stuff and let people know that this is what's going on. Facebook's fact checker system is just so wrong. They are really messing up with it. And the people they're picking are not the people that should be fact checking anything. But that's the situation we're in. So that's what I've got for you on this one. I want to thank you for stopping by, and I'll see y'all later.